target, achieving their customer count that they want to capture. So sales-led company are typically, they have close relationship with the customers, and they have several account managers, several sales representatives employed in the company for them to be able to reach their monthly targets. And some of these companies, they have very complex products. Okay, the product is very hard to understand, and that's why you need these account managers, these sales reps to kind of handhold them and teach them, what button you should click and what kind of happens on the screen. Right? These are complex products. I mean, not all sales-led companies have complex products, but many of them. The product discovery, right? How do customers discover these products? If you say how they discover, it's pretty expensive and it's pretty outdated, right? So for example, let's say there is a product manager, okay, and the product manager is looking out for project management tools. So what they do is they go to Google and they search for what are the top 5 project management tools, they type in, and then they see a list of results coming and they click on one of the links, right? And let's say it's from a company which builds the project management tool. So what the company does is it creates a lot of content to attract the right kind of user, right? So the company writes a lot of content to kind of attract the person to the actual product, which is the project management tool. The content is not the product, but the actual tool is their project management tool. So they have to write content, and then they have to kind of get them there. They have to run ads. And what happens is it's pretty expensive, the whole process. And what eventually tends to happen is that, let's say such a sales-led company is able to find a customer that pays $1 million annually, right? So this dude is paying like $1 million. What happens is there will be a tendency for the sales rep or the company itself to kind of get biased by this one particular customer, right? And what happens is the company becomes a feature factory. Now, whatever this customer says, they have to do it because this person is paying $1 million. And this $1 million is their ACV, basically means annual contract value. It's probably their highest annual contract value, and they feel obliged to meet whatever this customer is asking, right? So a sales-led company typically has these symptoms, like they have to be in very close touch with the customers. Otherwise, the customers might just drop off, right? So they need to keep making them feel good. They have to keep hand holding them throughout the product, and it's pretty expensive. And the product roadmap, right? Whatever they decide to build is totally dictated by that one customer. So that's how a sales-led company is. And typical examples are SAP, SAP, Oracle, IBM, even Salesforce. There are actually several Indian SaaS companies too, which are primarily sales-led, right? So what happens is people who are in the sales team and people who are software engineers in such companies, they get to bear the brunt of it, because first they will develop a feature, and then later on the customer who's paying a lot of money would say that, no, I want this type of a feature, and then they will have to make that again, and there might be conflicts between those two features. Ultimately, what they're building wouldn't be a great product. It would be like just a feature factory, features just plugged in together and it's doing something, right? So that is the level of complexity in a sales-led organization. Whereas a product-led company, the primary focus is on design, the user experience, the speed at which people are able to use the product. Right? It could be anything. It could be, let's say, an app, or it could be, let's say, take ID Vada, right? Vada making is pretty hard. And they came up with this beautiful design where you just squeeze in and the Vada just comes out of. That is also a kind of a product design, right? So their primary focus is not like selling too much Vada. It's mostly on making a great user experience for the person who's making the Vada, right? So I'm just giving you a simple example. It could be a B2C, it could be a software application as well, any of it. And product discovery happens through word of mouth. And what do I mean by word of mouth? It's when people start using it and they find it very useful, they start telling it to a couple of other people in either their friends or their peer circle to like, hey, you should try that app, or you should check out this product, hey, you should check out that book, it's pretty good, right? So they discover through word of mouth. They don't have to go online. They kind of like discover from their friends, their peers, and all of that. Everybody is using it, right? For example, take Slack. A lot of people are on Slack because of word of mouth adoption. And such companies, they focus on the behavior of the user on the app. What is this person exactly doing inside the app? And that will dictate their product roadmap. It's not about who is paying the highest money, right? It's totally dependent on what value the customer is getting by doing what actions. So that's how a product led company is. For example, there are companies like, as I mentioned, Slack. And I'm not sure if many of you would have come across these company names. Maybe Trello, right? Trello is like this Kanban project management tool, which a lot of you would have used for personal use. Some of you would have used it at work as well. There's Notion. And there's this another interesting tool called Calendly, which is a simple meeting scheduling app. Right? So all of these products are examples of product-led growth. So what do I mean by product-led growth is that they have reached some viral level of adoption among a lot of people. Right? So that's product-led growth. So let's see how to get to product-led growth and whether product-led growth is even sensible for your product. Because this might not be sensible for all the products, right? It might be sensible only to certain types of products. So let's see whether it's, sensible. Now, why do we focus on sales and product, right? Sales gives finite scaling. You employ 5 sales representatives, and those 5 sales representatives are going to reach their monthly targets. But a great product is going to give a good level of scaling, because beyond the sales representatives, there are going to be customers who are going to be using it. But when a product is in the right market, right? Like for example, Zoom, already it's a good product, already has lots of customers, already a lot of word of mouth adoption. Now it's in the right market. It gives exponential scaling. So you need to understand when to use what type of strategy before you actually go ahead with the product, before you go ahead into launching the product, right? So I'm going to cover a couple of basics. I just touched upon product-led and a sales-led company to give you a sense of how it feels like to work in such companies. Now, the basics, right? So this is something which some of you would have, some MBA students would have come across this terminology, and you would have seen a lot of product managers or people who are generally working in product companies. They would be using this in either LinkedIn or Twitter or any of their slides or presentations, go-to-market strategy, right? So I want to touch upon briefly about that, just for the benefit of those who don't understand this, right? So let's say there are 4 essential components, okay, to GTM, go-to-market strategy. What exactly is go-to-market strategy? You need a strategy to go into a market and sell your product. You can't just build a product and just imagine that you can sell it easily. You need to plan those things. So this framework kind of helps you to define what is what. What is the product am I building? What is the market am I targeting for? Who are my customers? How am I going to distribute the product? And what is that viral loop am I going to create for this product, right? So this framework kind of helps you to identify what market are you going across, what customers are you wanting to attract. So let me give you a simple example, okay? One of my friend's friend is running a health and nutrition based business. It's a private business, and he will be about the age of say 21 or 22, just finished college from Anna University CEG. So the market he's operating is health and nutrition, right? And there's something called as a segment, which is a niche in that market. So he is into keto based nutrition, and he basically makes a lot of meal plans for people who are wanting to eat keto based foods. So his customers are ideally fitness enthusiasts, athletes, celebrities, those who want to go on a weight loss, those who want to build their muscles, etc., etc. Right? So those set of people are his ideal customers. distribution. How is he going to distribute his business? So there are multiple ways to do it, and he has chosen something called as paid marketing. And in paid marketing specifically, he has gone to Instagram influencers. For example, he's reached out to Shraddha Srinath, actresses, actors, and asked them to promote his keto based business on their Instagram wall. And that has helped him gain some viral loop where people started seeing it and they started trying it. And he's basically earning around 50 lakhs per month without taxes. It's revenue, right? So that, and you can go look him up. He's OG Nutrition, right? So if you see, the success of his business is not just because the he was able to identify the market. He was able to actually make a really good product which was able to convince people like celebrities to endorse it, right? So this is more of an FMCG sort of a sector, right? Health and nutrition falls in that. And the similar thing you can see even in software. Like people come up with a framework to like see which market are we going to go after and which segment. Like he did not start a restaurant business, right? When you start a restaurant business, you have to make all types of foods. He didn't do that. He was very specific. He knew that these are his strengths and this is a segment that I have to go after. And he picked keto based nutrition. And he knew the customers are going to be people who have signed up for gyms, or people who are athletes and celebrities. And this COVID period, many of them were not able to cook. So he made use of that opportunity as well, right? So he was very clear what his go to market strategy was. And when you're very clear, it's super easy to know, where things are moving around and, where you can improve, right? So this is go to market strategy. Basically, it comprises of what market, which distribution channel, who are your customers. This is just basics of what I'm about to share, right? So go to market strategy. The next is called as growth funnel. Growth funnel is AAA triple R model. It was coined by somebody called Dave McClure. He's a very famous entrepreneur, venture capitalist. So what he says is, when you have a product and a person approaches that particular product, it could be anything. It could be a water bottle, it could be chocolate, it could be a software application, it could be any product. Okay, if you take that, there is a funnel through which this person moves through the funnel and finally becomes a customer. The first stage is awareness. So they have to know that your product exists. And then there's a stage called acquisition, where this person who just knew that the product exists starts to get interested about the product and he actually tries the product. The next stage is called activation, where they actively use the product. Like there are some key things. Say, for example, if you're selling, let's say, pressure cooker, and the key action of a pressure cooker is you have to put it on the stove and boil the rice or cook it. So that's a key action, right? So they actually start using it. And then there's retention. They find it valuable enough to continue using it. They think that, okay, it's pretty good, let me start using it continuously. And in software applications, this makes a lot more sense because you don't have to buy to actually try something. Because software applications, you just have to sign up, you try, and then make the decision whether you want to buy it or not, right? And then comes revenue, where you think it's valuable enough. Okay, it's actually solving some of my pain points. Let me pay for it. So they start paying. The final stage, which is the sixth one, is referral, where people, after they pay for the product, they feel very satisfied, very happy about the product. They go on to tell it to a lot of different people, to their friend circle, to people around. Hey, you should actually try this product. And they invite people. They send invites, referral codes, and all of that. You should try this product. It's pretty interesting, right? So this is the growth funnel. Typically, this is a startup growth funnel where there are 6 phases. First, they get to know, then they are interested, then they start using it, then they continue to use it, then they pay for it, and finally they spread the word about your product. So this is the growth funnel, right? So we learned about GTM. Once you have the GTM, there will be efforts aligned towards this funnel, right? You need to know how to make sure a lot of people are getting to know about the product. How do you make them do certain key actions on the product? How do you retain them? So there are different set of tasks around these funnels, right? Conventionally speaking, in a sales-led company, what they do is, as I already mentioned, they create like blog posts, white papers, and they gate it. Gate it meaning people have to sign up to that article or that site in order to get content from them, right? So people who want to read that content, they sign up, they give their email ID, any other details. The marketing team, which has created this content, they'll collect all the leads, they will qualify it, and then they'll share it with the sales team. And then the sales team qualifies it once again. Qualifies it meaning checking whether it's a spam email ID, or is this person actually, is this person somebody who would definitely convert, right? So they will make a note of all such email IDs, phone numbers, or whatever it is, right? All those information, and reach out to people and say like, hey, I saw that you have signed up for my newsletter. Do you want to actually try our product? We have a so and so product. Do you want to like try it? So they start pitching. So the sales team works towards moving the customer from one point in the funnel to the other point in the funnel. And finally, they convert this person into a customer. Like finally, okay, they try to convince them, they show the product, they kind of give them offers, discounts, like, why don't you buy this, right? And finally, the customer gets convinced and they buy it. So this process is typically how sales happens in conventionally sales-led SaaS companies, and it's a long and costly process. They have to pump in a lot of money to generate leads, and then these leads have to be converted into customers. This is conventional process. Product-led actually simplifies this a bit, in the sense that once you have a very good product, the product itself will sell like hotcake. You don't have to have a sales team. You don't have to have account managers. You don't have to have so many people like taking care of the customers continuously. All of that taking care activity is done right inside the product, right? So that is a product led. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you was personas. When you're selling it to somebody, there are two types, right? There's somebody called as a buyer and there's somebody called as a user. So for example, SSN institutions made the decision to use Zoom to conduct all their online classes, right? So let's say it's the management team or the IT team which came up with, okay, let's use Zoom for conducting all the classes. They were concerned with features, security, what is the service level agreement, what is the cost, what is the setup time. So that is their primary focus. And then what that does is, once they adopt it, it influences the complete college's productivity, right? The entire student's productivity is influenced by that decision. So they are the buyers. When it comes to user, it's the person who's actually using the product. In this case, the students are the actual users. The buyer is somebody who paid money for that. Sometimes the buyer and the user can be the same, sometimes it can be different, right? And the main thing that a user is concerned with is ease of use. How easy is it to use the product? And when they start using the product, they actually influence viral adoption. So the reason I'm telling you about, the, the growth funnel, the personas, is that all of this is very relevant to the topic product-led growth. So we learned about GTM, what GTM is. We learned how a customer moves through the funnel and what are the different stages. And when the sales team or when the product is sold, who are the people that they reach out to? It could be a user, it could be a buyer. Okay. Now, keeping all these ideas in your mind, let's go into product-led growth, right? I just wanted to give this context because many of you might not be aware of all these concepts, and product-led growth is a little more advanced topic which people in product spaces might be aware of. So that's the reason I gave you just a small preview of all those concepts. Now, product-led growth has been defined by companies, by individuals, by a lot of professionals. Like so many definitions are there on the internet. If you just type product-led growth, there's actually a venture partner company called OpenView. So they've coined this term called product-led growth, and they say it's a go-to-market strategy that relies on product usage as the primary driver of acquisition, conversion, and expansion. And then there's also a book called Product-Led Growth, How to Build a Product That Sells Itself. It's written by a person called Wes Bush. And even he is using exactly the same terms as this venture capitalist has mentioned, right? So what is it exactly? And simply put, your product is your greatest marketing asset. Forget about those fancy landing pages, or forget about those money that you've spent for Google Ads. Forget about your content marketing initiative, right? It's your product. A person who sees the product knows that, okay, this is pretty good and I need to buy it. So that's how product led growth happens. Kind of seems obvious, but the first crucial step is that you need to first decide whether this strategy works for you, right? So, as I mentioned, it's called go to market strategy. You could have a product led go to market strategy, or you could have a sales led go to market strategy. Now, I'm going to talk about when you should be using what type of go to market strategy, right? So the book which I just showed you, right, it's called Product Led Growth, How to Build a Product That Sells Itself. So he has given a very easy framework to help us decide what sort of a strategy that you need to go for your product. Now, your product can belong to so many different markets. It could be retail, it could be service, it could be real estate, it could be consumers centric. A lot of different markets are there. Okay, like could be hardware, could be anything. Right? It could be FMCG, or it could be fintech. Right? It could be any different market. But at the end of the day, you need to choose a strategy that makes most sense for your product. And how do you do that? There's a framework. It's called moat. So first is you need to know which market are you operating in. The next is something called as ocean condition. And I'll go into the details of that. Then next is called audience. Who's the audience? Is it going to be, the head of SSN institutions, or is it going to be the students? Who are you going after? Is it the bottom of the pyramid? Is it going to be the mass majority of students, or are you going to go to the key decision makers like the principal or IT team or any of those folks, right? So that is only audience. And the last is called time to value. That is, how fast can you show value? Should I have to use it for 10 days to understand that your product is useful? Or would I understand within the first try itself, right? So that's time to value. So these different things you need to question and consider before you decide on a framework, on a strategy. So as I mentioned, I'm just touching very briefly upon market and ocean condition because the other two, many of you might be able to understand it easily. Market is, say, for example, many of you would have used Google Workspace, which was formerly called as G Suite, right? So it's a dominant player, and their goal is to win all types of customers. I want customers for document management, email, chat, a lot of different areas. So they are dominant players who win all types of customers. And then there is something called as differentiated, where these companies, they go after underserved customers, people who feel that G Suite is not giving good value for my business, good value for my business or personal projects. Let me use something which is more easy, like Dropbox, right? So that is a differentiated market. And then there is a disruptive, where there are too many options, but still they're able to grow very fast. Say, for example, Slack, right? I'm sure a lot of you would have used Slack chat application. Now, when Slack was launched, it was not a new entrant in the market. There were so many other chat applications available, but Slack had a leg up because of the beauty of the product itself, right? So when customers have a lot of options, but still they choose one company over the other, it means that company is having a disruptive growth. And then there are other businesses which they kind of like force customers to pay a lot of money, and there are no options for the customer to switch, and they charge more price as well, right? Eventually these companies will go out of business because somebody will identify that this market is a good market and there are very few players, and those players are doing a very pathetic job and they're charging more. Let me enter this market and disrupt this market. So this is the mark. You need to have a bird's eye view of what sort of a market are you entering. Say, for example, you want to build a chat application. you want to make it into, let's say, a paid chat application or something, you need to have a clear sense of which market you need to go. Are you going to differentiate yourself in some way, or are you planning to become a dominant player, or do you want to charge less and do an excellent product which kind of makes a lot of people to start using your product? You need to have that sense of direction of your market before you launch the product. Ocean conditions, I mean, a lot of you would have come across this term called blue ocean strategy, red ocean. It's very simple, right? Say for example, when car was first invented, there was nothing, so no how do I say this, there was no parallel to a car, right? Car was a very new thing. When Henry Ford came up with a vehicle like car, the only thing which was complementary to a car was like train and horse carriage, right? So it's a new market. He defined a market for car industry, right? So that's a blue ocean condition where you're creating something absolutely new which does not exist. For example, if you take Zoom, in Zoom there have been several other video conferencing apps, but they have also created another video conferencing app. So that is a red ocean condition, because the market already exists. What you're trying to do is trying to get the demand from the competitor to yours, and you're trying to beat the competition. So that is red ocean. So if you are going to build a product which already has a market that exists, then your challenges will be very different from that of a market that is newly created. Okay. So all of these factors will play a huge role in what sort of a strategy you're going ahead with. And after analyzing several hundreds of applications in SaaS, it is seen that if a company has a very niche market, it is better to go with a sales-led GTM, because you need to convince the person a little bit. When the market itself does not exist, you need to convince the person to use it. Say, for example, Facebook, right? When Facebook, prior to Facebook, there were other social networks, so because of which people started using Facebook, but they started using Facebook more because of the product itself, right? So that was red ocean. But if you take blue ocean, something that never existed. Let's say, for example, when MySpace came, or even prior to that, right? And something online chat came. Nothing of that sort existed before. So they would have had some sales-led initiative to convince people to actually start using. So when you have something to compare with, and that market already exists, your challenges are pretty straightforward, right? So all of that plays a huge role in deciding what GTM strategy you're going ahead with. So that is about ocean conditions. So I spoke about the market and the ocean condition. And I already mentioned to you about audience. Who are you selling it to? Are you going to target students, or are you going to target key decision makers who have the budget to buy that product, right? So that's audience. Time to value is, as I already told you, are you going to take like 15 days to get this customer using your product because that's when they realize it's valuable? Or can you showcase your value within the first day itself? So time to value. So all these factors will play a huge role in deciding your GTM strategy. Now, I have given you ideas on how to choose your strategy for the product. Why is this product-led growth important right now, right? So let's say in the case of building a software application, things have become extremely easy to set up a software company. Like you have AWS to host your app, you have whole bunch of tools and frameworks, lot of help online to build and set up a company and get started. So which means there's a very low barrier for entry. Like anybody can start coming and building an application. But that doesn't mean that you can acquire customers soon, right? So let's say like two of you are building a new line of cloth line, or let's say you're building a new fashion brand, okay, or new e-commerce app, right? So anybody can build it. It's very easy to build and get it ready. But to acquire a customer, it has become extremely costly. right? So I'll show you how costly it is exactly with examples from Swiggy and a couple of other apps, right? The cost to acquire a customer, that's called CAC, the cost to acquire customer has increased a lot because there are so many players in the market. Say if Swiggy has to capture a customer, it spends some money in marketing, sales, running ads on YouTube and getting you to download the app, hiring people for their team. So there's so much of cost involved to acquire one customer, right? So though the barrier for entry has become very low, the CAC has gone up a lot. And because of which, what has happened is it's very hard to acquire customers. So that's why product led growth really helps, because once you focus on the product really well and you have a good GTM strategy in place, you should be able to drastically reduce your customer acquisition cost. And these days, people who are buying products, they prefer to buy the product rather than hear a guy call you middle of the night and say like, hey, HDFC Bank credit card ninga update pandringla, things like that, right? So you don't want to hear that. You actually want to use that financial product and see whether that has any value for you in your life. Then finally, people want to make a decision based on the user experience. So these are the three main challenges for a startup growth, right? In SaaS space, especially. So I want to show you examples of product companies which have uh, overcome these challenges to some extent, right? So I showed you, I mentioned about Slack, about Calendly. I'm not sure how many of you have, used Calendly. It's a very simple, meeting scheduling app, pretty straightforward, right? And it has become a truly viral product. And what happens is you need two people to use this product. The first person who's scheduling the meeting, the other person who's actually invited to the meeting. And the product is extremely collaborative. Each time when somebody is sending an invite to join the meeting, there is also what they're doing is they're automatically promoting the product through that link itself, right? So that is happening. And the person who receives the invite, they experience the product firsthand, and that kind of convinces them to use the product. They sign up and they start using. And Calendly, this is this is how their GTM strategy would look like. At the core, it's the product itself, right? The product should solve some problem which other applications are not solving. Like you have your Google Calendar, you have a back and forth email conversation to decide on which date and which time that you want to meet, versus doing all of that on Calendly. You don't have to go on email. People just come and choose the slot and they're done with scheduling their time, right? Their meeting. So the product has a core value of solving some pain points. So that is their strategy. And if you see the market that they're going after, it is personal workplace productivity and a particular segment of it. They're not doing all sorts of productivity, just one segment, meeting scheduler. That's what they're focusing on. And if you take the customers, they're targeting small and medium sized businesses, and typically customers who are also using Google Workspace, Zoom, Microsoft Outlook, Apple, GoToMeeting. So these are different other meeting application tools. So what these folks did was that they did not reinvent the wheel. They did not build a calendar app entirely. They did not build a meeting link or audio video conferencing technology entirely. What they did was they figured out that the existing apps are not helping much. So let's actually build a product on top of these tools, on top of people who are actually using these products. And as I mentioned, their distribution channel is organic, right? As I mentioned, if one person sends the invite, the other person also gets to see that this so and so app exists. And in the product, because of this invite mechanism, there's a viral adoption. So that is Calendly for you. And Calendly has this very interesting thing called K factor, which is called coefficient of virality. They actually calculate it, right? It's nothing but when one person sends an invite, how many people is this one person able to attract, and how many of them are becoming paid customers. So that's the virality factor. So they actually calculate this, and this is a core metric for their product led growth, right? And then there's something called as Notion. How many of you have actually used Notion? Anybody here? Any such
No,
Notion? No, not heard of it at least. Have you heard of it?
no, not heard of it.
Not heard of it. Okay, so
Yeah.
all right. So Notion is basically a document management, or let's say it's a note-taking app. Like if you've heard of Evernote, right? It's primarily a note-taking app, but they've positioned themselves interestingly, right? So this is how their website looks like. And if you go check the performance of the website, you see all of the traffic that they're getting on their website is organic, which is like the best thing to happen for a product company, right? You don't have to spend so much to get people visiting your website and using the product. It's everything 89, almost 90% of their traffic is organic. And if you see from where exactly their traffic comes, you see there is GitHub, right? So it shows that Notion is having a lot of customers from GitHub. It has like 1 million users, 2 billion valuation currently. So those are pretty great results for a very small team, only 50 people in the whole company, no account manager, not many sales people in the company, right? So what is really great about this product is that there is a very easy to use drop and drag and drop functionality basically. And on the home page, even before you actually sign up for the product, you get to see the value of the product right on the homepage, because you can actually try it out on their homepage. And GitHub is a major source of traffic, which indicates that a lot of software developers are building apps on Notion, right? So that's about Notion, and their GTM strategy would have looked like this. They are also in the exact same personal and workplace productivity market, and their segment is note taking, internal wiki. Some people even use it for project management. Their customers are individuals, small businesses, and enterprises, teams and enterprises. And the viral loop which they have created through the product is they have a very strong community. If you go look at Reddit, there's a community of ambassadors for Notion, where they have created a lot of templates, and all these developers on GitHub, they're building apps on top of Notion, and they are advocates of the company, right? So they utilized that those ambassadors to get word of mouth organic reach. And so that is the GTM of Notion, right? This is how they went with the you know this is how they target their customers. And then there is Dropbox. Some of you might have used it. It's again a file sharing and collaboration tool. It's also pretty much in the same space, right? But their segment is online storage and collaboration. And what they did was they again had something called as referral links, where people could share the link with somebody else, or they could invite somebody, and they will start using the product, right? For example, Dropbox, right? When started, they had like 100K users in 2000. They reached 100K users in 2008, and by the end of 2010, they reached 33.9 million users, right? And how do they do this? So they developed a very simple, usable product which is solving two things: file sharing and collaboration over the file, right? And once people started using it, they grew their customer base. And when users earn more storage credit, they started earning, they started earning storage credit by sharing a referral link. And this referral tactic helped Dropbox gain new users while also like enhancing the customer experience for existing users. So yeah, so it was a two-sided reward, and because of this viral loop, Dropbox was able to like build their customer base, and now they are valued at around like a billion or so. In just span of 10 years, they became a $1 billion company, and product was at the heart of their growth, right? So when you say product is at the heart of their growth, you need to have some metrics to like know whether you're having a proper product led growth, right? And some of the very obvious indicators are the team itself in the company, right? You might have lot more product folks in the company versus the sales people in the company, and that is a dead giveaway that it's a product focused company. Like say for example, take WhatsApp. very nimble team which built the product. Or like take Notion, only 50 people are employed in the company, and most of them are either developers or product folks, and you don't need many salespeople in that case. So that ratio kind of gives you a sense of whether the company is sales led or product led, right? In terms of measuring the effectiveness, right, the value metrics, there's something called as I mentioned, time to value. Time taken for a new user to reach an aha moment, right? Say for example, you're signing up for Netflix, and then how much time is it going to take for you to really appreciate that product? That is the aha moment, the time taken. For some products, it will take a lot of time because that's how they have designed it. And for some products, right in the starting itself, they'll really start to love the product. And some of the tactics to improve the time to value metric is frictionless onboarding. Having an onboarding experience which you don't have to put in all your biodata inside that sign up form. Just put your email and that's about it. You get a link and you start using it. You're just signing into the app and start using it, right? So that's frictionless onboarding. Whereas some applications, they ask you way too many questions and then they let you in, right? So to have a frictionless onboarding, it's one of a very good tactics for product-led growth. And the other thing is, inside the product, you need to nudge these people towards taking those key actions in the product. Right? Let's say you have now got the person inside the product and they're clicking like unwanted things, which is not actually the most valuable part of your product. So you need to make sure that it's pretty straightforward for the user to click on certain things in the product, or it could be any product. It could be a software or it could be any hardware as well, right? So nudge them towards key actions in the product. And there's an interesting metric called CAC payback period. So this is called customer acquisition cost payback period. So this might seem like a lot of jargon. To just break it down to you, it is time taken for a customer to pay back their customer acquisition costs. For example, let's say Swiggy spends 200 rupees to acquire one customer. Okay, and how they are spending the 200 rupees? That could be like showing them an ad, or that could be like showing an ad on YouTube, or it could be even like maybe like let's say like any sort of credits they're sharing, or saying 200 rupees is like is on us, right? So they could spend 200 rupees to get that first customer, and that customer should order 10 times for Swiggy to get back its 200 rupees, right? So if they're going to spend 200 rupees, they should actually spend, the customer should order 10 times, because each transaction, Swiggy makes about 20 rupees profit. So let's say you're ordering something from Swiggy, they make 20 rupees per transaction. But if they have to get back the 200 rupees they put it on you, then you have to order from Swiggy 10 times, right? And this is called unit economics. You would have come across these terms. I mean, MBA students might have come across these terms. So in food delivery business, the unit economics is very crucial. To get 200 rupees back, you need the customer to make 10 orders, right? And how do they do that? They build app loyalty. And if you see all these food delivery apps, they keep constantly nudging you to, even if you've had your lunch, they'll probably send you 2 notifications to buy another lunch, right? So they have to kind of bring customers to their platform. They'll build app loyalty by through discounts or offers, right? So the time taken to actually pay back that customer acquisition cost is another metric which will show whether this company is going to have good growth or not. If they're going to take a lot of time to pay back, it means they're actually losing money like crazy. And most of these food delivery businesses, they lose money like crazy, at least for the first 2 years. And then it takes a lot of time for them to like pay back that money which they lost. Then this other thing is called product qualified leads. So all of this might be applicable to software applications, right? So number of users who have performed key actions in a free product or a free trial. In the sense, you're given a product for free and you are seeing how many people have actually taken some key actions in the product. So how do you do this? You need to track the events for your key actions and identify what are the actions that will take the user to the next stage. So if they have added food to the cart, What should they do to like actually pay it? What are they doing it? Where are they going away? So how do you find that? You need to perform A/B tests. You need to do user interviews. You need to see a live recording session of what the person is doing on the app and all of that to understand what actions lead to, you know, somebody becoming a proper customer of that product. The next metric is called NRG, natural rate of growth, and the next is called virality. So, natural rate of growth is nothing but the percentage of revenue that you're getting from your organic channels. And again, to break this down, organic channels are nothing but, say, somebody is just directly going and typing your company name rather than clicking on an ad, or they are seeing your post on social media, or they are seeing some blog post, and then they are making a decision to finally they are buying your product, right? So some of these product led growth companies, they have very different metrics to track because it's viral growth. So they kind of see how much of this revenue has come from organic channels. So they have very different metrics, and these are the metrics they track. Virality, as I already mentioned, it's called a K coefficient, which Calendly uses. And how do they improve these metrics is by building referral systems as a part of the product for organic viral growth. Now, there's an important thing here. It's not just the referral system itself, because if your product is shit and you build a referral system, obviously nobody is going to refer it. So you need to bring the referral system at a stage when the product is actually being actively used, and you know that the product is giving good value, right? So mostly they achieve it to referral system. So I mentioned Calendly, it's sending the invite. Uh, Dropbox also does the same thing, right? So that's another set of metrics. And then there's something called as expansion revenue, revenue from existing customers. So somebody has bought a product. Let's say from ID, you have bought ID coffee. Okay, or let's say ID idli mavu, right? You've bought the idli batter. Now, expansion revenue is a metric which is used to calculate the revenue from existing users through upsells. What is an upsell? Maybe let's say from idli mavu, you are buying something else, like maybe idli maker, okay? And then you're probably buying chapati, or maybe you're buying idli ID filter coffee, right? So from one product, how many other products of that brand are you buying? So that's expansion revenue. And for companies that have product led growth, it is said that the base score should be like 30% of your revenue should be coming from expansion MRR. And the reason is that it's so much more cheaper to acquire, uh, it's so much more cheaper to upsell than to acquire new customers, right? So that's the reason why people focus on expansion revenue. Okay, right now I have one product and I have one set of customers. Can I build another product and kind of make this person buy that product as well, right? So how do they do this? What are the tactics? They offer one main product and several related products. They offer add-ons. And if it's a software company, they might even offer APIs, right? They might monetize the APIs. That's expansion revenue. And then there's something called as average revenue per user, which is used across SaaS. It is also relevant for product-led companies. How much money are you generating per customer? It generally indicates the health of the business, right? So you need to price in a certain way such that your company, as your company revenue grows, as a company that you are going after, right, as their company grows, your revenue should also grow. So let's say you have a customer who has 3 members working, and if that customer employs like 5 more, right, which means they will need to use their product for 5 more people, right? Which means your revenue should also grow. So if you have like a flat out pricing, let's say like let's say 4 right? The vegetable vendors, they send 4 things for 10 rupees. It's a flat price. But variable pricing is saying you have to pay for every time you have a new addition, you have to pay for each of that addition, right? So you should make sure that if your product needs really good growth, you need to price it in such a way that as your customer grows, your revenue should also grow. And some of the ways they do this is they offer product bundles. Say, for example, in gym membership, they might say, take a yoga class, take gym, take this, and then they package it into a bundle and they put a rate for that. You might actually not end up using all of the services, but you end up increasing their revenue per user by doing that, by subscribing it, right? So these are some of the product metrics which these product led companies track. And yeah, so that's about it. So product led growth is ideally choosing a product led go to market strategy and identifying your market, your distribution, who your customers are, and having a viral loop. And these are some of the metrics which you can track. So this is product led growth, and this conversation doesn't end here, because uh, this is something which a lot of people define it in very different ways. Product led growth is, let's say, like 2-3 people have defined it in this way. There are other people who have like slightly different opinion on this. So this is not like, the final, it's not set in stone. It's a lot of things as people discover, they say, okay, this is how this company actually went ahead with their strategy, right? It's kind of evolving space. Product led growth is not set in stone. There are a lot of interesting things happening, especially in the software space. So read up about it. And if you have any questions, you can ask me, either related to this or related to my work or anything else that you want to know about. You can ask me. And I've also left my contact here. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm active on Twitter. I'm also not so active on LinkedIn, but you can connect with me there. And I also write a couple of posts on my site called vandana.guru. You can subscribe to my blog as well. So I hope this was useful in some sense, but again, this is very, very, it's a meta topic, I would say. If I were in your shoes, then I would say this is a very meta topic. I hope some of you were able to gain something out of this. Thank you.
That was a wonderful session, Amira. You took us through the entire DTM strategies as well as different models to measure as well as move forward. And the comparison between both product led and sales led, that was way too precise.
All right, that's great to hear. Yeah, feel free to you can ping me, you can ask me questions, anything if you want. You can ask me later. I guess it's getting a bit late for a lot of us, so if you can, we can take it offline. You can ask me questions outside of this thing also.
Thanks, Vandana. Thanks a lot. It is very interesting because we are also working on a couple of products, getting into GTM strategy.
Okay.
So it was very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.